All right, eighth graders getting closer and closer to being awesome high schoolers. Want to go ahead and look at graphing in slope-intercept form. This is actually Wednesday's lesson. Really quick comment, 7 and 9, those are a little bit unique. Those ones are aligned a little bit more from Chapter 2 information, data table, somewhere in your notes. Give you a small hint. Vertical, horizontal. You have to know which is which, though, so maybe you could do a little bit of research on that. Everything else looks like it is pretty much ready for slope-intercept form, except for when you get to 10 and 11. So we'll look at that a little bit in a few moments. So, quick refresher again, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. Slope is rise over run. We've already talked about that recently. Y-intercept is your b value. Remember, y-intercept is where the line touches the y-axis. It is an ordered pair, 0, 4, 0, -2, and so on. So what we did previously was talk about that information. Let's go ahead and skip through that. Let's jump right to the idea. Again, positive slope is really just rise over run, counting up. And in my class, we did talk a little bit more about the backwards counting in case you ran out of space. I believe the other classes did as well. So for example, let's say you've got your starting point, which happens to be your y-intercept. You have a positive slope. Maybe it's like 1 over 2 or 3 over 5. Again, we did our counting up and then right, up and then right. And it kind of looks like your staircase going up, or maybe a mountain going up, because we read left to right. We envision this as going up, some type of ascent. Negative slope, it would be downhill. We read left to right. You got your starting point, which again is your y-intercept. You count down, then right, down, then right. And when you connect your 3 points again, it should look like a slide, essentially. You're going downhill, down the slide. We read left to right. Now, if you do your backwards counting, just make sure you're really careful that they still line up, and it still will give you either a positive or negative slope. All right, so quick graphing skills here again. We identified previously our slope and y-intercept. Our slope is -2/3, which again tells me it is downhill. My y-intercept is 0, 5. So when you were ready, we talked about, okay, let's put our starting point, which is our y-intercept, which is 0, 5, and then we simply practice our counting with our slope. Down to right 3. So literally, we put your pencils and then you counted down 2 boxes, right 3 boxes. Some students, for whatever the case, may have done a little bit of miscounting, so please be very careful. Down to right 3 again. Now on this one, it goes off a little bit. Hopefully yours doesn't. If it did, you could always count backwards. So instead of down 2, it would be up 2. Instead of right 3, it'd be left 3. We make our line, arrows, and quick equation. Now, real small hint on like number 1 and 6, it doesn't actually have a rise over run. Remember, you could put a 1 underneath it. Hey, I must have been psychic. We're going to go ahead and put a 1 underneath the 2. So that means my rise is 2 over 1. Small hint too, we said if there was an improper fraction like this for the slope, it would actually look pretty steep compared to a gradual line. So y-intercept again is 0, -1, and then up to right 1, up to right 1. Very steep going uphill. You could always practice your backwards counting, down to left 1. Connect it, and it makes a nice line. So you've got several like this that are ready to graph. Number 5, just be a little bit careful there. We might have one similar to that. Really quick again. Starting point, down 4, right 3. Goes a little bit off. Yours should be good. All right, let's focus on these problems here, which is very similar to 10 and 11. Now, although this one technically you could use your intercepts, we're going to go ahead and practice our skills to get it into slope-intercept form, which again is move the x, then divide. So we're going to go ahead and subtract x, or 1x if you want to write that, and then we're going to divide by 2. And if we do that, we try and simplify each portion. That's why I put a fraction there for each part. 2y divided by 2 is just y. -1 divided by 2 is a -1/2. And 6 divided by 2 is 3. Now that I have it in slope-intercept form, I am able to graph it just like we did on the previous ones. So again, my slope is -1 over 2 going downhill, left to right going downhill, and y-intercept is 0, 3. So let's go ahead and plot those points. 0, 3 on the y-axis, down 1, right 2. And again, this is a little bit more gradual. Notice it's not as steep as an improper fraction. connect it, good to go. Remember, if you had to, you can go backwards, which means go to the y-intercept here, and you would go up 1, left 1, 2. It would still line up, and that's really key there. So you're going to move the x, then divide. And again, if you need to, pause it, back it up, whatever you need to do. Let's move the x. Subtract 2x both sides. Now remember, 10 subtract 2x, you can't do that. Don't say it's 8x. And it says be careful of the negative 5y. A lot of students, when they do this, they forget to write the negative sign on the 5y. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. Essentially, whatever's in front of y, that's what you divide by. Again, trying to get it into slope-intercept form. Can reduce it with the signs on the 2 over 5, but the digits can't really change. Positive 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2, of course. So we've got our slope, y-intercept. Y-intercept tells me start at 0, negative 2, and then slope tells me up to right 5. Up to right 5. And again, if you need to, count backwards. It would be here, down 1, 2, left 5. 4, 5. Make your beautiful line, and you got your equation. Now remember, if you have any questions, let us know. Because again, the slope and y-intercept is so important, especially for tomorrow's quick review lesson. All right, be awesome.